Um, it's been so I can't say that I've absolutely hated the pandemic because I started doing the stream
Mm-hmm.
pretty much in around the same time that stuff started getting serious around the city.
Nice.
And so I'm fortunate. I've been able to stay connected with people virtually, obviously, connected, but still, not alone. Still sharing ideas, still imagineering with
Mm.
different people all over the place, and there's a similarity. I think that a lot of people went through the same type of feelings, even though the geography was different. And I think that there was some tough stuff for me. I went through some crazy insomnia stuff. I'm kind of still going through it. And it
Mm.
kicked my ass. I don't know if that's ever been a thing for you, if you've ever had to deal with
Ins-
something like
Insomnia, yeah, on and off, depends on my schedule more or less. I've been forcing myself to to be more physically active and to stick to a schedule more, and that's been helping with it. Your body gets like into the routine, and overall you're better rested. But yeah, if I don't try to stick to it, and if I just only spend time sitting down in the studio and not do much physical exercise, it's so much harder.
that. Hmm.
Definitely. Luckily, it hasn't been like super bad. My wife definitely has been struggling with that as well,
Oh no.
insomnia. Yeah.
Is
Um,
she waking up in the middle of the night? Is she getting, how is it? Is she sleeping for 2 3 hour spurts
um,
and up for a couple hours? This is what happened with me.
it
I'd go to
depends
sleep two,
because
3 hours and be awake.
a large aspect or a large chunk of the insomnia has to do with her PTSD that she has been dealing with and kind of processing over the last few years. It's so much better now, but it used to be like after therapy that for a week it would just be like complete chaos in her mind. Like it's just like her body just like takes over, and it's just like state of tension and um, stress that really overpowers her, that she just has to basically distract herself as much as possible to not let it control her. Yeah. And
Wow.
then that results in nightmares and insomnia as well.
Okay, well, I think actually this, before we really get into it with each other, I think this would be a great opportunity to ask you perhaps the most
Mm-hmm.
important question I could ask during our first date. This is what it is. It's our first date.
Yeah.
Um, is there any type of content, questions, ideas, anything that you don't wish to discuss, something that might make you feel uncomfortable that we should stay clear of? Because I don't want to have
Mm,
obviously, and I want to preface that with this. This is a romance show. Utility Room's a romance. It's about those of us who are in a relationship with music. We love music so much that
no, I am not really afraid of sharing anything. I've been getting very used to the idea of being as open as I can and really just sharing what's on my mind. And I don't really have any secrets other than maybe I have been working on a new alias for the last year. I've been building, and I can't get too much into the detail of what it's called and what it's going to sound like just yet. But I can hint at it. I can like mention it, I suppose. Right.
okay.
That's basically it. Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, if you want, we can. I'm obviously curious to know where things are at right now, and so this would be a wonderful opportunity for me to kick in and say that originally from Belgium and into one of the coolest cities of Canada, Montreal, our guest tonight
Yeah.
has lit up dance floors worldwide, top charts on a variety of online platforms, and has incredible production chops that are shared, I think, daily, maybe. I'm not sure, but one thing is certain, and that it's absolutely dynamite, and so is Lektrique, right here with us in the utility room, and super stoked to have you with us tonight, man.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, when you reached out, it has been years that I had spoken to you or heard from you, but I remember meeting you for the first time. That you had such like nice energy, and you're such a pleasure to be around. So I
Cheers.
couldn't imagine saying no.
Oh, it's great. It's one of those things of I'm super curious. I have gone through the bio that's available online, and it's short and sweet and to the point, which is great. It leaves lots of room for me to ask all kinds of questions about stuff that I have no
Ask
idea,
away.
and I want to know about the adventure. I'm curious, so let's get into it. Did raving start for you in Belgium or in
Yeah,
Montreal?
no, in Belgium. I mean, not in the scale that it did in Montreal, obviously, because I grew up in a kind of middle of nowhere little village that just had some. I had a town nearby where I was going to school at the time, and no real access to electronic music other than the occasional kind of underground rave where local DJs would come play vinyl. And that's also how I got my introduction to it. I would take the train to the nearest bigger city, go to the vinyl store, purchase records there that was at the time, like Dead Mouse before he was very like all over the place, and fidget electro at the time was a very big thing. Dubstep was just starting out. It was a really wonderful time, although I definitely was a little frustrating because I was so inspired by this music and I was really lacking and searching for a platform to be consistently exposed to it and to kind of have a way to grow in it. And it's very hard in Belgium at the time, especially. Now it's a bit more widespread, but the genre of electronic music that I still cherish the most is like electro house. That has kind of faded from Europe as well, I would say. Yeah.
What was it? How was it that you were learning about new releases, stuff that was coming your way, or to learn about new music in general? That was, I guess, dance floor
Blogs.
driven.
Yeah, blogs a lot. There's so many like little remixes and edits that were floating around. I can't remember the names of the blogs that I was checking at the time, but yeah, there's like the blog house era, and obviously those records at the record store, that was like a major way to get exposed to things that I wouldn't find online. Lots of music that I discovered that way. And then a few years later, in 2010, I moved to Montreal to go and study there. And that's when I found out about Cannibal. Was just a monthly party in Belmont, um, and they didn't have like the people that were playing the nights weren't really. Some of them were producing, but the focus was not on production. It was really just on these themed nights with fake blood and people dressing up in the theme of the specific edition, which was always different, but the underlying theme was always like fake blood, cannibalistic kind of and just heavy electronic music, electro trash at the time. Moombaton was big at the time, and I was just like in awe of this vibrant scene of passionate you know dance parties that I had not really been around in Belgium. It just didn't really exist in that way. So I found my way there. Eventually, got in touch with them just over the like Facebook event page. It was like they were talking about starting a record label. I just said, "Hey, I make this kind of music sometimes," and they enjoyed it, and we met up, and everything kind of got started from there. I introduced them to my then recent friend from Belgium, who I didn't know at the time, but he moved to Montreal as well, Apache. Then they loved his music as well. We all kind of got together and everything started rolling. Yeah, we've
How
all kind of been
cosmic
there from
is
the
it that
beginning.
you're in Montreal and that you bump into someone that also has just come from
From
Belgium? And
Yeah, crazy. I can't. It's very small odds.
so you
We
guys were already
only I
vibing
only knew
before
of him because we had a common friend from Belgium who told me that this guy had just moved and that I should meet him. So I did.
you guys were already vibing before you went into the studio with like
Hmm.
a dope energy, because the story was maybe not similar, but the detail is the same, which is that you started in Belgium
Yeah,
and landed in Montreal.
and he had also come there to study. Yeah, in sound.
Was there? I want to say that it's said in Canada that Montreal is the most European like city. So coming from Belgium, would you say that that's true?
From the other cities that I've visited, yeah, you could say that. I mean, maybe Quebec City is even more so because it is a lot more traditional French. Montreal is a lot more a boiling pot of different international influences. I wouldn't say it's the most European, but from I mean, compared to maybe a city like Brussels, which is also somewhat a melting pot, not as much as Montreal, I would think. But yeah, it's close, definitely. Quebec in general, the province, definitely, yes.
How are you splitting up your time between production and DJing?
Well,
I mean,
since
then,
quarantine, that
not
hasn't. Oh,
necessarily right
at the
now.
time,
Although obviously,
no,
I'm
no,
curious. But
yeah,
then,
yeah.
like how?
At the time, well, I was just trying to make as much music as I could. Luckily for me, the program that I was doing wasn't super demanding. I was studying audio recording and sound design, and that was something that I had already been doing for years. So a lot of the knowledge that was passed on to me there was somewhat already familiar or things that I really already knew. So I didn't have the hardest time, and I was able to spend a lot of time at home making music, connecting with people that were at the school. There were also musicians, of course, networking in that way. And kind of getting my start with the Cannibal Records in that way. Yeah, learning a lot. Yeah.
Were you part of a variety of online communities that you felt that were helping fuel what was happening with your own brand?
At the time, not as much. No, there was not really any like strong online community that I felt like was driving my or fueling my music production. It was more like what I was exposed to on a day-to-day basis. Um, and then of course like online stores like Beatport and things like that were definitely showing me new music that was coming out. But it was actually mostly the Montreal scene in the end. If I think about what influenced me the most at the time, it must have been really the electronic music scene there, the dubstep scene, which at the time was skyrocketing. It was taking off. There was a dubstep show every weekend. I saw Excision play like a 300 people venue there at the time, which was, yeah, something that you can't really imagine these days, but it started like that over there. It was beautiful. Yeah.
What was happening with the dubstep scene in Montreal? Because I know that it's ongoing, and
Yeah, it's still going strong. I honestly
I feel
haven't.
like the fuel of dubstep and the heart of the dubstep scene in Montreal it's pumping bigger than what's happening in Toronto.
Yeah, I think that's just kind of just flowing over from its foundation and how it's always been a very strong scene there ever since 2010 or 2009 when everything really started popping there. Those promoters are still throwing festivals like the Big Tooth guys from Montreal. They're still doing Valhalla, their annual festival, which is amazing. Like they it's such a passion project. Like the amount of people that were part of this,
Awesome location.
it's
I mean, I
inspiring.
was at the
Yeah.
first one. I'm not quite sure if is it the same location now?
No, they have changed locations
Okay,
twice
that
already,
first
I think.
location was excellent.
It was, yeah, really beautiful. Yeah. I think I was there the first or the second. And then I did two more, and then I've been dying to go back. In the last 3 years, I haven't been because I've been here in the States and in Belgium. The last 5 years, actually, I haven't been. Yeah. I'm dying to go back to Montreal as soon as quarantine there is over and the country is allowing international travelers again. I'll be back.
You're in Los
For sure.
Angeles right now.
Yeah, yeah. I've been here for the last 3 years.
What brought you there?
Music. So when my permit expired in Canada, when I finished my studies there, I applied for a postgraduate work permit, which I got, which then allows you to work for the same amount of time as you study there. I looked for a job, but I quickly realized that any jobs in like studios or gaming companies, it's all kind of like networked, right? It's all like I know someone that no person knows someone, and the potential to get a job as an international worker, like as a foreigner, is very difficult, because if you want if you want to get a new permit out of it, they would basically need to prove that they can't find a Canadian to do your job in your stead. So they basically need to prove that you're irreplaceable, and that was a very complex and difficult process that most employers don't even want to get into. It's pricey, and it's fucking takes a lot of time to get through it. So
This is
I
the same
didn't
type of
find.
thing that plagued a lot of DJs wishing for work permits, trying to get into the
Yeah,
United States from Canada to go and perform.
yeah,
I know the process is supposedly a lot simpler, or at least it was pre-pandemic. I'm not quite sure what's gonna be going on the border right now, because it feels like the
I
border's been it's been forever closed. I mean, I'm exaggerating. It's definitely been closed for a year, right? I think.
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So I didn't find a way to stay in Canada, so I had to accept that. And after 5 years living there, I had to go back to Belgium, because at the time I didn't have a permit in the States. So I was then trying to um, grow in the European scene. I had sort of already made a bit of a name for myself. I've been playing shows in and around Montreal in Canada, some left and right. And I was hoping, with our connections that we had with our booker in Europe, that I would be able to, at least play regular shows. I did that for about a year, 2 years. And then I noticed that also then just the amount of interest in heavier bass music in Europe was really declining.
What
So
do you feel was the
I
pickup? What was the pickup at that time instead, if that was on the decline?
I feel like in Europe it grew around the same time as it did in North America around 2010. It really got big,
What's
and
that?
then dubstep and
Right?
heavier bass music in general. Although when I left Europe, heavy electro was doing really really good. Artists like G-Tronic and things like Crookers and like kind of like fidget electro they were playing festivals everywhere. And then as soon as big room EDM kind of became the norm for electronic music, after that, I feel everything just crashed. I think people kind of lost the inspiration. It all kind of started to sound too similar, and I think that was in the end kind of the end for heavier electronic music in the larger, like, as a major scene in Europe. I still feel like these days, the tech house and um, techno is what dominates electronic music in Europe. I mean, it always has, but there was somewhat of a competition at the time, and now there's no question. Yeah. So when I noticed that everything was on the decline in Europe, I turned my focus towards the States. And with then Black Tiger Sex Machine playing their third or fourth tour, I was lucky enough to get an O1 visa to be opener for the next tour, for the next 2 or 3 tours even. So that got me in the door for the States, got me here a 3-year permit. And when I found out that I could live in the States while I was on that O1 visa, I just took off. Yeah, I was like, why would I stay in Belgium and limit my potential and my opportunities so greatly if I can see clearly that everything's happening in the States? And then the discussion was, where do I go in the States? There was talk about going to Denver for quite a while, because Denver has a pretty good dubstep scene, especially these days. But at the time, Los Angeles was definitely, where everyone comes together, all kinds of electronic music. There's a huge film industry, there's a huge music industry. So I ended up finding my place here, quickly connecting with the right people, and then just growing here and finding my agent and starting to play shows around the States. And then 3 years later, no, actually 2.5 years later, COVID hit, and I was faced with the scary decision at the time. Do I leave with the potential like never coming back? But I got the timing on this is incredible. I can't even explain it. I had then been dating my now wife for about half a year, and you know, when everything just, we knew we were gonna get married. We already knew this. We didn't want to rush it. We were like, we'd rather do it after quarantine. But with the possibility of me having to leave and not be able to come back to the country, we kind of went for it. So we got married last summer so that I wouldn't have to risk being separated from each other. So I am luckily still here. Currently, my green card pending, but everything should be fine. Everything was submitted according to requirements, so I'm eager to get it. Yeah.
Awesome sauce. Well, you know,
Yeah.
everyone loves a good love story.
Yeah. Honestly, I never really imagined that I would find someone like her. It's, I can't explain it. It's like, I kind
Okay,
of feel.
how did y'all meet?
I met her for the first time very briefly. We didn't even talk at a show that I played with Black Tiger Sex Machine in Detroit. That's where she's from.
Raver?
And a raver?
Raver?
No, she was starting to get into electronic music. I wouldn't exactly call her a raver at the time. She was running, or had just kind of. She had just gotten out of a very poor wedding. Like, she was married for about a year and for the wrong reasons, so things didn't work out. She was in the wedding business. She was doing she was a wedding planner essentially, right? And when I met her, I think she had just gotten out of all of that, and she was looking for. She had always wanted to work in music. Like, she loves helping people and planning. So right now she's artist, tour manager, and personal assistant for a bunch of artists, helping with social media and things like that. She's incredible at it, obviously, because that skill set carries over. But at the time, she was just kind of like in between jobs and looking for opportunities. Like I said, I didn't really talk to her. Her sister was hitting on me and asked me to come to my wife's birthday party at the time, but I didn't go because I was exhausted and we had a show to play the next day. So I didn't really go for the bait. But I ended up talking to her. So my wife has a service animal, right? And he has an Instagram account, and it's like, who is this dog? This dog is incredible. So I just started talking to him, which is of course her. And then we started talking, and she was at the time starting to tour manage for some artists. She was tour managing for Jerry Gonza, which is a house vocalist and DJ performer. And we crossed our paths in Phoenix for Gold Rush, and we met for the first time, and we just instantly hit it off. It's like everything is right. It's like personality. It just clicked. And then we tried to figure out when the next time would be that I could see her. And there was 2 more dates on the tour that she would be in the area that I was able to meet up with her. And then I just asked if she wanted to come visit in Los Angeles. And I just asked her to stay forever. Because everything was so amazing, and she basically never left. Yeah. Well, she already had planned making her way to Los Angeles, making her way towards the city where everything is, artist management, everything is here. So she knew that she wanted to make her way here. She didn't really know how yet. So this all worked out for us. Yeah.
Did you feel any challenges dating as a touring performer?
Oh yeah. So at the time, I didn't really understand yet why me as a person, I was having a bit of a hard time connecting or finding a person that understood love in the same, it has the same perspective on love as I do. And it's only until I met her that I finally found someone that shares that understands that, for example, love and sex is not the same thing. There's fundamental differences there. Emotional attachment and sexual attraction, they're completely separated. Like, yes, there's overlap, but it's not the same thing. A lot of people are kind of being told that you can't have sex with a person without a love interest, or the other way around. And we started our relationship somewhat on open terms. So we were very communicative about it. It's not like we were hiding things from each other. We were, from the beginning, we was like, these are my intentions. This is what I want. And from the start, we were really open about that. And I wanted her to know how I feel about these things. And I wanted her to tell me how she felt. And we kind of continued doing that for the first year. Even though I didn't really understand what that meant, or what kind of relationship that would become, we were kind of open on and off, but continuing to be really communicative about it. And then only about a year ago, we got introduced to an amazing group of friends that were polyamorous. And that's kind of when everything started to click for us, when we really understood that this is a potential choice for your life. Like, you can live life like this and not have to close off these parts of your these desires or these thoughts that you might not be able to explore if you were completely monogamous, and if your partner wasn't accepting of that. So in the last year, we started to, well, year and a half now, we started to explore that. And there's a lot of information available online, like books to read about how to approach this. But it comes down to us really just taking it step by step. And it has not been easy. I'm not saying that this is something that just came naturally. It's something that we felt was the right choice for us because it fits our worldviews and our views on love and sex and our what we want out of life. Like, we basically don't want to limit each other. We want to facilitate each other's growth and just get everything that we could potentially get out of life. Don't inhibit potential connections with other people, maybe emotional or sexual. So step by step, we went through this. Like I mentioned, not always easy, as she was also dealing with a lot of PTSD from her upbringing that was now really coming out because, well, PTSD is kind of, as you're staying really busy and you don't allow these underlying mental issues to come out, they won't really manifest themselves consistently in your life. But once you're in a comfortable place where you're able to address them, you're kind of opening the lid, and all of a sudden you are dealing with all of these problems that have been kind of pent up and not addressed for a decade or for most of your life, really. It's also very common for people to start to understand and these problems to manifest in their early 30s. So that's exactly what happened. And that, in combination with us, stretching our boundaries and communicating about what we want out of our lives and becoming more and more poly, has been challenging, but so amazingly rewarding. Like, I have learned so much about myself and about love and about communication that I never would have if it wasn't for us deciding to take this on and deciding to really face, like take and get what we want out of life actively.
Living out loud with this lifestyle, do you find yourselves having to explain this to friends, family?
I have still not explained it to my parents because I haven't seen them since quarantine. And before quarantine,
they're not utility room watchers, is what you're telling me.
Yeah. We have already done an interview with Sidewalk Talk about polyamory that's available online. If anybody's interested in like getting more in depth of that, that's a good place to start. But there's so many books on this that help explain the different styles of polyamory and the different ways of approaching this. There's not just one way. It's like polyamorous or not. It comes in very different forms depending on the amount of partners that you have and whether or not that all of your partners are at like equal priority or not. Like, for example, my wife and I, we are in what's called the primary relationship, where each other's emotional state and connection is prioritized over any other potential partner. If ever our primary partner doesn't feel comfortable with anything, we always have the right to say no, not now, or let's talk about this and maybe in the future, but right now I'm not in an emotional state where I can handle these things. That can be for various reasons. You just woke up having a bad day. It doesn't matter. You always have the right to say no. But generally, when you're feeling good and you're emotionally comfortable, we are in a place where we can allow each other to experience emotional connection and sexual connection with other people, because it doesn't take away from our connection. It's like when you have a child, you don't necessarily love one child more than the other. Every person has the capability of loving more than one person. It's just the underlying tension and potential jealousy that needs to be addressed. And I'm not saying that we don't feel jealousy. I'm just saying that we address it in a way that's healthier, that's not toxic, and that doesn't result in negative consequences. Like, we don't sabotage our relationship, or we don't, make decisions that would influence our partners in a negative way. There's other ways of dealing with jealousy other than, just feeling hate or feeling like you're being attacked, essentially. Yeah.
Have you guys discussed how it might work out in the long term?
Yeah, we just take things step by step. We haven't really set our minds on we want to do this forever. Again, this is something that's like flexible, and it's so fundamentally important that your connection with your partner, that open communication and over communication is constantly there. You need to, like, if that connection isn't there, and if you're not on the same page, that's when problems arise. That's when you feel like and it's possible that, for example, we do arrive at this point sometimes because, she's traveling for work, or I'm like, when you're not with each other for a while, it's possible that you're not in this state where you feel really connected to your partner. And it's totally fine for us, at least in our style of relationship, that we, in those moments, are not poly. It can happen. Like I said, it is flexible. We haven't set our mind on like, we always want it like to be like this. No, that's not how it works for us.
The one thing that seems like it stays static is the love that you two share.
Exactly.
Which is the most important thing. You're saying that some of this came about while you were touring.
Yeah.
That's when the vibe sort of started in the conversation. When you were touring, though, did that change the way that you were looking at your own music?
See, to an extent, I always felt like there was something wrong with me, or like I couldn't be happy in a relationship where I had to feel ashamed or hide that I would want to have a connection with another person while being in a relationship. And that's why for a while I was just being single, because it didn't really make sense that I could be in a relationship and still feel like being myself and being able to connect with people. I would just like shut a part of me off, and I would have a hard time like just talking and just being like socially neutral towards new people that I would meet. So I don't know if that connected to my music, maybe in a way where there were some frustrations that were possibly let out through, making heavier music. Sometimes that helps for me. It's an outlet for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But that's hard to say. I never really, until the last year, I've never really thought about incorporating these ideas into my songwriting or into like subjects for music. Yeah. But now I have been in the last year. Yeah.
And we're almost out of this super strange time. What did you do
Yes.
to the end is near. What did you do to help continue the momentum of Lektrique during the pandemic?
Well, I kind of shifted my focus more towards educating and helping other people. I have been doing workshops even when I was still living in Montreal. I used to do free FL Studio workshops at a school there, and I had met some people here in Los Angeles that their entire career, their entire business model is built on educational tools, plugins, sample packs, videos that they will sell on their website. And they've been helping me kind of build my platform, which I'm kind of going through right now. I have a website that's coming up, which will contain a master class, just everything electronic music, from A to Z, from people that are just starting out that don't even have a computer yet, to people that have been making music for years and just need help with specific techniques, mixing, mastering, you name it. And additionally, I will also be making sample packs and making FL racks, like the patcher racks. I am an FL Studio user mainly. I do use FL Ableton as well, but I've always felt very close to the FL Studio workflow, and I just really enjoy their tools and their synths. So it's hard for me to completely cut that out of my production workflow. I like to use Ableton for like stem processing and sometimes mixing and mastering for sure. Yeah.
Feeling that you're at a place artistically and as a producer where you want to go ahead and take the next step to go and educate new people, where do you find how are you sharpening your skills to stay at a level of where you can evolve with what's happening with the music? And I don't just mean obviously by genre and style, but I mean like on a technical level.
You mean, well, actually, I think the fact that I have been shifting my focus more towards education and doing these one-on-one sessions.
Something more special and unique to come and see the performance. If the music is accessible at any time, anywhere, any place, does this take away from part of the magic of the user and the experience, especially at a live show?
Yeah, I definitely feel like as a musician, or as a DJ even, there's always going to be that distinction between artists that are just playing music. They're basically like a glorified iTunes, where yes, you are you're picking songs and you're mixing them in a way. It's an art form by itself. But then there is the elevated like stage where you are a lot more creative and you're actually editing things and you are like giving it your own touch. And I feel like that is a kind of process that every artist goes through. Everybody starts out just for the love of the music and playing songs. It's probably going to become harder and harder to make money at that stage, to kind of like overcome that part of your career as everything starts to get monetized and taken down if it's not given the royalties to the rights owners, or if you don't have a license, as you said. So I definitely think that everyone should be aiming towards getting a part of learning how to manipulate it and learning how to create it, if you want to make a career out of it. If you just want to play music for the fun of it, I think, you can do that at home. You can do it anywhere for your friends. I don't think that's going to change, right? They can't control what you do in your house. Hopefully forever.
Guess we're probably going to have you back. I thought our first date was a lot of fun. If you'll have us again, that would be lovely.
Yeah, I would love to.
Really appreciate you stopping in with us, sharing your thoughts, your vibes, and your experiences. We have been with Lektrique, Super Dynamite, here with us in the utility room. Like, comment, subscribe, share, do all the stuff that makes it go, and we will see you soon next week.